We have three basic issues today. One is numismatics. Thereafter, we have schools of philosophy, science and technology, very small discussion, and then literature. There are four basic topics we have to cover. Other than that, I told you that the chapters which not to read in Nitin Singhania will be cinema, circus, appendices. These are not to be done generally because either they are outdated or they are of no relevance. Thereafter, the must read out of Nitin Singhania are foreign travelers, the chapter on foreign travelers, Buddhism, Jainism, thereafter, along with that, Buddhism, Jainism, foreign travelers, you have a good chapter on law and culture, basically 2-3 articles related to that, and we can do science and technology from that. If you have it, good. If you don't have it, no issues. If you have the book, good. If you don't have it, you're not missing out anything. I have covered everything which I'm telling you must read wise that ways. But foreign travelers, Buddhism, Jainism, law and culture, science and technology, if you want to do, you can do. You can straight away skip these three portions, which is cinema, of no purpose to you, circus, no purpose to you, appendices, again no purpose to you. So I know the books are not, if you have enrolled, you may not have got the books. I get it. I understand that's a perennial issue. You're not alone in it. There is some issue internally with regards to that. But the basic point is, if you don't have it, still the PPTs are enough. That is why the PPTs have been made more or less, in a way, as comprehensive as possible. I am enrolled for 2 years, and how my second batch will start. Every subject gets repeated from time to time. You will keep on getting access to the dashboard. Okay, so you don't care about that. I need assistance regarding that. You have to write to target IS for that. So why there were no classes yesterday and before that? Because the course has officially got over on 17th only. We can end by 3:30, 4 o'clock. We'll be for sure over. Okay. Now the first discussion we need to have is called, in which chapter's book you are talking about Nitin Singhania. We have to discuss the 6 schools of philosophy. And when we talk about the 6 schools of philosophy, we are having ethics integrity class going on. So you can join that. You can watch a video of this. Don't give me this, that. I know there would be something going on parallelly. Either join that. You can watch the video later for this. Okay. Bhagya, I have no idea. Pavitra, I have no idea with regards to that. Again, as I know, I have no idea with regards. I'm the wrong person to ask this question. Okay. Weekday classes, so you have to join that. End of story. Ancient medieval art and culture is over. So this is the last class. Why are you confused? This is the last class. We had 3 basic 4 topics left, which we'll cover and then end the class. End of story. Now, when we talk about the 6 schools of philosophy, there are basically these 6 which are there, which is Vaisheshika, Nyaya, Sankhya, Yoga, Purvamimamsa, and Uttarmimamsa. And the fact remains is that they remain within Hinduism, and over and above that, they are not outside the religion itself. They are not a separate religion. They are just alternative paths to Hinduism. And the the odd one out is Charvakism, which basically remains within Hinduism but does not adhere to the Vedas. They do not challenge the Vedas, but this one challenges the Vedas. So when we talk about 6 schools of philosophy, we are not talking beyond a new religion or a new concept itself. New religions were Buddhism and Jainism. We are talking about plain, straightforward alternative paths. Now the question is, what are the alternative paths to? They are alternative paths to moksha. To moksha. And when we talk about this concept, we know that we have a body and we have a soul, and the soul keeps on changing the body, but the soul remains the same. And this is called the cycle of birth and rebirth. Cycle of birth and rebirth. And when we are talking about cycle of birth and rebirth, moksha basically means soul breaking the cycle of birth and rebirth. And the fact remains is that when God gave us this soul, the soul wants to become part of what it was, which is God. And while Vedic Brahmanism is one path wherein there is ritual and sacrifices, wherein it is called ritualistic merit, which is basically punya. We know about punya as a concept of ritualistic merit, the fact that when you get punya, you will get moksha. Now, in frustration of these rituals and sacrifices, there were 3 religions which came out, which is Ajivikism, Buddhism, and Jainism. But there was an internal churn also within Hinduism. And therefore, rejecting the ritual and sacrifice concept itself, 6 schools developed which challenged this path. They did not challenge the Vedas, they did not challenge Hinduism, they just challenged the concept of this path by giving alternative paths. And therein comes the concept of schools of philosophy. Which basically give an alternative path to moksha within Hinduism. What is Mimamsa? When I will reach there, Gayatri, I'll tell you. Now, in order to understand this concept, you need to understand one word, which is called Dvaita. The 2 words, Dvaita, Advaita. But the first 4 schools in this is basically related to Dvaita school. Now, what do you mean by Dvaita? Dvaita means dualism. And dualism means that the rishis and the munis and the preceptors of Nyaya, Sankhya, Vaisheshika, and Yoga argued that reality can be divided into two parts. One is called Prakriti and the other one is called Purusha. Now, Nitin Singhania somehow links up Prakriti with femininity, Purusha with masculinity. Again, his misogynistic notions, that is technically not true. Prakriti basically means nature or material world, which is the world which you see around you. And Purusha is basically the spirit world, which is the metaphysical. And what dualism or Dvaita argues is that the intersection of these two is called Jiva, life form. When Prakriti comes together with Purusha, it basically becomes Jiva, which is life form, a physical form which you have, and then consciousness, which is metaphysical related to the spirit world. Now, dualism is very important because then, in order to understand reality, you need to understand two things, which is what is Prakriti, what is Purusha, and then also reconcile how to go forward in getting moksha. So, duality or dualism is basically division of Prakriti and Purusha into two, which is the reality into two, which is Prakriti and Purusha, which is the material world, and the other one will be the metaphysical spiritual world. Now, Sankhya, written like this also, Sankhya, is the first school which comes under the concept of Dvaita. As a Dvaita school, it says that yes, Prakriti is different from Purusha. And while Prakriti and Purusha may be different, the path to salvation, or what we call today as moksha, is real knowledge or sensory knowledge. What do you mean by real knowledge and sensory knowledge? It means that you have to perceive the reality through your senses and then gather knowledge, and that knowledge will lead you to moksha. So in the examination, whenever there is a term, where there is a word real knowledge, real means whatever you can see, smell, taste, touch, and generally hear, is what makes the knowledge real. What makes the knowledge real. Now, Sankhya, in that sense, is very straightforward because it does not complicate things. It straightforward says, and the founder being Kapil Muni, he argues that there are two parts to the reality, which is Prakriti and Purusha, and Jiva binds both of them together. The salvation will be through real knowledge, through perception to perceive something, to then inference to hear or use your senses. Here, experience is very, very important, and senses are very, very important. And senses are very, very important that way. That sensory knowledge is very, very important for us generally. Now, Sankhya talks about sensory knowledge. Sensory knowledge. Then yoga comes in by a person called Hiranya Garbha, and later will be under Patanjali. The originator is Hiranyagarbha. Thereafter, Patanjali will reorganize it. Yoga says, yes, Prakriti is there and Purusha is there, but dualism it believes in, Dvaita is believes in. However, yoga says it is not knowledge. It is not knowledge. It is rather controlling Prakriti and Purusha by one another, which is what are called as pranayams, asanas, all together come together to create how to control body and mind through one another. And that is why here it is about physical application and meditation. A path which basically they've taken from Buddhism in a way, but the concept is very straightforward, wherein Prakriti Purusha is there, controlling Prakriti from Purusha, but here it's about physical application. It's about controlling the mind through the body and the body through the mind, and vice versa that ways. So very simply, they don't use the word samadhi, they use the word meditation. They use the word pranayam, asan, and other forms of physical application. So very simply, yoga in a way, because it is just coming after Buddhism has risen, there's no years involved. This is all the period between 6th century to 3rd century CE. So there's no specific year, BCE, there's no specific years here. It's just straightforward, what we call as philosophical knowledge developing over a period of time. So while Sankhya would say that you get real knowledge, Yoga says no, not knowledge, but physical application, controlling mind and body, and everything will get controlled in that sense. And you can see the way they argue is quite Buddhist in that regard. Hiranyagarbha, systematized by Patanjali, dualistic philosophy, salvation through meditation and physical application, asanas and pranayams for concentration, control over sensory pleasure is very, very important. The concept of Buddhist path of contemplation, concentration, these words are quite common within Buddhism, and therefore, in a way, they were maybe contemporary to each other or borrowed in a way that does not really matter. But yoga has that basic flair of basically contemplation and concentration. So when we talk about these two, they are talking about two different things. One is talking about sensory knowledge. The other one is talking about the concept of knowledge, but not through knowledge, but through the concept of understanding the body, physical application, controlling the chakras. Then in between all of this, Nyaya comes through. And Nyaya changes the emphasis. Nyaya says, okay, yes, the world is Dvaita, which is dualistic. It is surely dualistic. But when it is dualistic, the concept is very straightforward that within that dualism, Nyaya says that the path to salvation is knowledge. But there's a very important word which is attached to it, right knowledge. According to Nyaya, there is both right and wrong knowledge, which seem to be the same. That is why Nyaya means justice, the difference between right and wrong. The concept is he believes that, or the Jamini, who is basically the person who's a preceptor, right knowledge leads to salvation. Right knowledge leads to salvation. Leads to salvation. But wrong knowledge is ignorance and does not lead to salvation. So basically, you have Sankhya, you have Yoga, and you have Nyaya. However, be it Sankhya, be it Yoga, be it Nyaya, the concept is they have different emphasis. Yoga is totally different to the four Dvaitas. Three Dvaitas talk about knowledge. The first one talks about real knowledge. But what Nyaya would argue is, if you do not have the right knowledge, you will not get salvation. The difference, it is a logical school. It's called the logical school, wherein your conclusions and comparison matters a lot. Conclusion and comparison matters a lot, wherein I have touched this remote. That is the way Sankhya talks about it. But I would say that you should not just look at through the concept of sensory concept. You have to go further than that. You have to go beyond that in that sense. So 3 we have done from the Dvaita school. The last one is called Vaisheshika. It's called Vaisheshika. Now, Vaisheshika is called the atomic school, the pluralistic school, the school which is basically related to the concept of further divisions, in the sense that they also believe that the concept is Dvaita, Prakriti or Purusha, but Vaisheshika says that we should not take Prakriti as given or one form or concept. Rather, they say that Prakriti can be further subdivided into its elements: air, water, sky, earth, and fire, basically the tattvas. And the concept is, the day you realize this, the knowledge of the pluralistic or pluralism of reality, this is going to lead you to salvation. This is going to lead you to salvation. So the concept, if you look at it, you have yoga, you have nyaya, you have vaisheshika, and you have sankhya. Sankhya talks about real knowledge. Yoga, nyaya talks about the concept of right knowledge, and vaisheshika talks about elemental knowledge, or what we call as pluralism of knowledge. And the last school in Dvaita comes as yoga, which is asanas and pranayams, which is controlling body and mind. And in that sense, it is about meditation and physical application. Meditation and physical application. These are not in chronology, they are all coming up together along with each other. So when we talk about all the Dvaita schools, these are the Dvaita schools. We have seen Sankhya and Yoga, Nyaya, Gautam Muni, preference, perception, inference, comparison, testimony. Comparison is the real one. Logic for attaining knowledge. Wrong knowledge leads to suffering. Right knowledge is important. Is again the word right would bring you to the Ashtang Marg. So again a little bit of Buddhist influence. Vaisheshika under Kannada talks about atomism and pluralism. The concept that earth, water, fire, air, and sky combine to take basically make matter, and the consciousness what we have is Brahma the creator. And very simply, you are suffering because you are ignorant of this, and therefore only through salvation, through knowledge, but knowledge of pluralism of the tattvas or the elements in that regard. So are we clear about Dvaita schools? This is not very difficult. It's straightforward. Nitin Singhani has written it in a very difficult way, but it's very straightforward. 4 basic concepts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, sir. Perfect. Now, vis-a-vis this, there is also what are called Advaita schools. Now, Advait or Advaita is the opposite of Dvaita, which is monoism. And what Advaita would argue is that reality is not dualistic, but there is only one truth, and that is Brahma, which is creator or God. So they don't believe in this Prakriti and Purusha thing. They believe that everything other than God or Brahma is an illusion. Is a concept of what we call as Maya and Moh. So the concept of Advaita is very straightforward. The only truth in life is not this Prakriti and Purusha division. No. The real knowledge about reality should be that there is only Brahma. There is only one truth, which is the creator or God. Brahma is the real creator. Reality is not dualistic, but is one. There is only one thing which is truth. Everything you see around yourself is just Maya Moh. If you get caught up in Maya and Moh, you will never get salvation. The day you realize that one truth, which is God, you get salvation. Now, under this school, you have two. The first one which developed is called Mimamsa. Now, Mimamsa used to be one, but it's split up into two because of disagreement. So you have a Purv Mimamsa and Uttar Mimamsa. Now, Purv Mimamsa is basically repackaged Brahmanism or Vedic Brahmanism. In the sense, it is an Advaita school, and its path to salvation is basically rituals and sacrifices, which makes it no difference from the point where we started from, rituals and sacrifices. And here the concept of punya, the concept of ritualistic merit, and previously they did not give justifications. Now they give justifications for the rituals they are doing. Mimamsa is written like this also. Mimamsa. Same thing. So it's basically the same as the concept of Vedic Brahmanism. It's just repackaged Brahmanism. The new repackaging is they will give justifications. That's it. But one set of saints got frustrated by this repackaging, and what came out is called Uttar Mimamsa or Mimamsa, which is called also Vedanta. Now, it's called Vedanta because it shifts the emphasis from the 4 main books to the Upanishads. Which is the last part of Vedas. That is why it's called Vedo ka Ant Vedant. And Uttar Mimamsa very simply got frustrated. It got frustrated by rituals and sacrifices. and it believes in Advaita only, but their way of salvation through spirituality, through meditation, and through the knowledge of Brahma. So basically, if you look at it, they have added all the features of the previous schools. They've added all the features of the previous school. Purvamimamsa, started by Jamini, talks about emphasis on reasoning interpretation, but for Vedic rituals, the concept of dharma, path to heaven, but it was only Brahmins trying to keep their ritualistic authority in control. This is the one which will challenge everything. It talks about meditation, it talks about self-discipline, it talks about spiritual connectivity, it talks about realization of Brahma, the absolute truth. And Vedant in that regard is the most popular, and it was also popularized by two very important personalities, Shankaracharya and Ramanujacharya, which we previously discussed also. But there's a difference between Shankara and Ramanuja. Shankaracharya talks about Advaita, but Ramanuja talks about Vishisht Advaita. Now the difference between the two, the meaning of Vedant, Vedo ka ant Vedant, based on Upanishads, Vedant. Now, basically Vedant means Upanishad. Shankaracharya argued that all souls are the same. All souls are the same. There are no differences between souls. Meaning that if I take out my soul and I take out your soul, it will be the same. Will say Vedant just straightforward gets frustrated by the concept of what Purvamimamsa was saying, and therefore they mix up all the previous schools and talk about salvation through spirituality, meditation. They say that once you realize the truth through spirituality and meditation, you will get what we call as the concept of the salvation. It is not challenging Vedas. No, it is not challenging Vedas because it is still based on the Vedas, but it has shifted the emphasis from the four main books to the last book, which is basically the Upanishads. So Shankara, Advaita, all schools are the same, all souls are the same. Your soul, my soul, everything is the same. But Ramanuja is a little bit different. Ramanuja says that no, souls have qualities, which is that whatever you are today, because is the character you are today is because of your soul. So every soul is different, and that is why it's called Vishisht Advaita, which is qualified monoism and non-qualified monoism, which is that the soul has qualities, and that therefore they are different in their approach in understanding the concept of the soul itself. That is the only difference between Shankaracharya and Ramanujacharya, the soul concept of how souls have quality and do not have quality. So in a way, to summarize the six schools of philosophy, if you look at it, we have four schools and two schools. Four schools, be it Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, and Yoga, and then you have Purvamimamsa and Uttarmimamsa. This Nyaya is about right knowledge. Vaisheshika is about elemental knowledge. Sankhya is about real knowledge, and this is about meditation and contemplation. Purvamimamsa is again about rituals, but Uttarmimamsa is about spirituality and what we call as contemplation plus meditation to realize the truth. The truth being that there is one God and everything else is useless. This is the basic thing which you need to know. Any question, be it mains or prelims, can be answered through this basic discussion we had. Are we clear about 4 plus 2? Dvaita, Advaita. Yes? Okay. Now, the last school is called Charvakism. This is called a non-heterodox school because it says these Vedas and all are confusing and there's no point reading the Vedas and all. They argue that why are we so obsessed with what will happen in the Parlok? Parlok means after death. So they are the school which talks about Lokyata, this lok, the life. They are basically the YOLO's group that you only live once, and therefore, why are we so obsessed with death? They argue that we should very simply establish ourselves with this lok, enjoy the worldly peace, the world itself, and they believe there's no parlok, there's no moksha, there's no concept of salvation. For them, reincarnation, soul, spirit, God, all these things are things which may be there, but they don't want to accept it. And very simply, they argue that after death everything disappears, there's no parlok. So they are basically the school of materialism, which is that be it birth, rebirth, it's not, that doesn't matter to them. It's like, if I'm reborn, I don't care. If I'm born, I don't care. I'm going to enjoy life to the fullest. I'm not going to give up on everything because I will make sure that my parlok becomes better. Rather be in this lok and I will be happier in this section itself. That is the basic idea here. So Lokyata is considered the last one and the odd one out in that sense. So with this, six schools of philosophy are done. Do not get caught up in what Nitin Singhania is saying. Clear? Okay. Now I'll give you a breather, though you all are still joining in. I'll give you a breather. After this breather, heaviest topic, literature. And then we'll go to numismatics and thereafter science and tech, and we will finish the class. I give you a breather, 5-10 minutes. When we come back, we pick this up again. Don't have to worry about. Now, this is a very big chapter. It's an extremely big chapter in Nitin Singhania. It's a very, very big chapter. But you don't have to worry about that because whatever is in the PPT, learn that first. Learn that first. And I'll mark things out for you which you should remember. And there's no running away from here. You have to do it. There's no alternative here. It's a pure discussion of what to learn. Now, the first thing you need to learn is that in Indian tradition, in Hinduism, there are two types of texts. One is called Shruti, the other one is called Smriti. Shruti is basically the Vedas, or what is called as a Vedic corpus, is the only Shruti text in India, and everything else comes under the concept of Smriti. Shruti is very straightforward. Under Shruti, what it says is that the Vedas are non-questionable. They are only learned by the Brahmins and disseminated within Brahmins. So you can listen to the Vedas, but you don't have to learn it or you don't have to remember it. On the other hand, when we talk about Smriti, you have to remember it, and it was remembered by the students in the Gurukul itself. So the difference between Shruti and Smriti would be that it is to be heard, canonical, cannot be changed. It is eternal. On the other hand, Smriti is what can be learned, can be remembered, can be supplemented, and the everything else, Puranas, Upavedas, everything else is basically the Dharam Shastra, all are Smritis. That is why they change over a period of time. Vedas don't change over a period of time. Now, when we're talking about the Vedas itself, there are 4 basic books of the Vedas and 4 sub-books of the Vedas. First is the Rig Veda, as we know, which has all the hymns or the shloks which are there. and it is the core book in that regard. Then the Yajurved tells you which sacrifice needs which chapter of Rig Ved, wherein what is the Rig Ved chapter or what are the shloks which are relevant for a specific type of sacrifice. So it will tell you for which sacrifice which chapter to use from the Rig Veda. Sam Ved, on the other hand, will tell you how to sing or how to read the Rig Veda itself. And this is the Soma sacrifice is the most sung, which is basically Soma means god, sun god, basically is the most popular in that regard. Simple straightforward point is that the Yajur, Sam and Rig are connected to each other. You pick up the Yajur, you see which sacrifice you want to do. Then you go to the Rig and see what are the shloks which are there. And Samved will tell you how to read the or how to sing the Rig Veda itself. On the other hand, Atharved is different because Atharved has what we call as the later knowledge. Initially, it was not even considered a Veda. Later, it was. It is what has the basic concept of superstitions, magic spells, beliefs, whatever was added later into the Vedas is basically Atharvaved. And Atharvaved has the Mundaka Upanishad, which is basically Satyameva Jayate, comes out of this Upanishad itself. Then what is an Upanishad? Basically, the Vedas, 4 books are there. Then further 4 subdivisions are there. One is called Samhita, which is the mantras are further sub-chapterized. Those sub-chapters are called Samhita. On the other hand, then you have the Brahmanas, which is basically the concept of what is the logic of putting that under a specific Samhita, and you have the logical or the justification for the division in the Brahmanas. And then for the same reason, you can see there are different Brahmanas which are attached to a certain Veda, and there will be different Samhitas also which are attached to a Veda, but you don't have to learn that. What you have to understand is, then you have Aranyaka. Aranyaka is books which were written by the people who went into the forest. The sannyasis who went into the forest have come back. Their knowledge is put into the Aranyakas. And last but not the least is the Upanishads. While the Rig Veda is just the shloks, Upanishads are the philosophy of the Veda, is the interpretation of the Vedas. What does the Vedas actually want to talk about? It is written in the way of a conversation between a teacher and a student, and they are the last book of the whole set. That is why it's called Vedant. Ved ka ant. So Vedant. This is the ease. This is the still easier part. What is more difficult for you is Buddhist literature, because here you would have to learn certain names of texts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight those texts for you, and you are going to learn them straightforward, and that is how you're going to do it, 1 or 2. This chapter should only be picked up when the whole syllabus has already been done. Students are very eager to do it, but why not? You have what are called the T-Pitikas. Everybody knows Vinay, Sutta, and Abhidhamma. On the other hand, there are also other texts which are related to the Buddhist religion. Here you have the Vinay, Abhidhamma, Sutta, and Vinay. Everybody knows. Then you have what is called Patimokkha. Patimokkha is the book which has the list of transgressions, things which monks cannot do. So this is the first term which you need to know other than Vinay, Sutta, and Abhidhamma. Thereafter, you have the Jatakas. Jatakas are basically a set of texts which are stories of the past life of Buddha. And within that, you have what is called as the Kundaka Nikaya. Nikaya means chapter. Nikaya, which basically deals with a very interesting set of texts, which is the Dhammapada, which is the concept of what is the ethical saying of Buddha, and Theragatha, Therigatha. So these are stories or poems written by monks and nuns, and it is considered that Therigatha is one of the earliest texts written by women and attributed to women itself. So Therigatha becomes important in that sense. Thereafter, we have another set of texts which we already seen, which we already know in different parts of ancient India. Deepavamsa we've talked about in the context of ancient of Mauryas. Don't have to remember this. Milindapana you should know because this came in the examination also. Nagasena, Milindapana, Menander, Indo-Greek king talking to Nagasena. Mahavamsa again referred to as a Sri Lankan source. Don't have to remember this one. You can remember this. Thereafter, now come the set of texts which you should remember. You have Mahavatsu, which is basically something as a Jataka. Don't remember it. But Lalita Vistara Sutra, which is a story of how the first sermon was given at Sarnath. Then you have Udana, which is the oldest text of Theravada or the oldest corpus of literature. Then you have Bodhivamsa, which is basically a prose poem in Sinhalese and Pali, talking about again the past life of Buddha itself. And then you have Udana Varga, which is the basic utterances between the disciples and Buddha, not important to us. Then we have Mahavibhasha Shastra. Mahavibhasha Shastra is basically a Mahayanic text which talks about non-Buddhist philosophies, no reference to us. Then you have Abhidharma Moksha, which is basically related to how Vasubandhu and a disciple of Buddha had an understanding with and spoke to his disciples in that sense. Then you have Vishtugimaga, which is basically a Theravada text, again talking about Buddhist teaching, not important to us. So here you have to remember the following, which I marked first, and thereafter this is totally prelims oriented area. I cannot teach anything here. I have nothing to say about this. It is a pure area where I will identify. So Vikram, I don't know what I do by going slow here. So I'm just identifying this. It is 99% your job, 1% my job. So I'm doing my job. You have to do your job, which is to learn this. There's no running away from this. There's no answer to this question. What do I need to do? The same has to be done for Jain texts. For example, Jain texts have a catch. The catch is their names look like Hinduistic texts. Therefore, for example, Siddhant or Agama is the most sacred book for them. And it is written in what is called as Ardha Magadi. Questions have come, state match the following questions come in the examination. Now, I'm obviously not going to go into all of this, is no purpose to me. What is important to me is this, which is Adi Puran is not a text of Buddhism or Hinduism, but of Jainism. Looks like a text out of what we call as Hinduism. Same way, Harivamsa Purana and this came in the examination 2022. The Trishna Lakshana Mahapurana, these three texts together are time to time sprinkled around in the examination to be learnt because you need to know they are Jain texts. What they contain within themselves is no purpose to you because standard match the following question is going to come. Nothing more, nothing less in that sense. Thereafter, we have already gone through the Mauryan texts, the foreign sources of Mauryas, the Gupta sources, and the Gupta texts. So in that sense, we have done 90% of this already in ancient. It is medieval where you have no idea. But in medieval, either it is foreign travelers or it is indigenous sources. Foreign travelers, Al-Biruni and all we've discussed. But there are some people you should know, and I will tell you the trick here. It is again a very heavy portion. The whole section in Nitin Singhania is very, very big. But there are people who have written the same text with written a text with same name. That is where you need to know. The link to this module cannot be given by anybody else than me because there's no SME. So when this class will be over, automatically the annotated PPT will be generated. So don't worry about that. Now, you have Al-Biruni, Kitabul Hind, which is already considered very, very important. But then you have a very important personality called Barni. Ziauddin Barni, one, Biruni, Barni, and Minazus Siraj. There are three very important people of the Delhi Sultanate period. Al-Biruni before Delhi Sultanate, Minazus Siraj, and Ziauddin Barni. Why are they known for basically this basic idea? Because both of them wrote Tarikh-e Firozshah. The text has two different versions. One Minhajus Siraj's one and one Ziauddin Barni's one. But Barni also wrote what is called Fatwa-e-Jahandari, which is a text talking about the whole Tughlaq rule and the political ideals of the Muslim rule in India itself. But the hard part does not start here. The hard part starts from here. You have Amir Khusro, very, very important personality. He has 5 texts under him, and you have to remember it because he's again sprinkled around in the examination from time to time. These texts, Tughlaqnama, Nu, Shipir, Ashika, Fitwa, or Kiran Us-Sadin, are texts which are talked about, which talk about the conquest of what we call as Jalaluddin Khilji, Mubarak Khilji, Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq, written at that point of time. He was a disciple of Nizamuddin earlier, that is why he's important. But then I have made these tables for you, and my basic expectation is going to be you are going to take out what is relevant for. So, for example, see, you have Ziauddin Barni, Tariq-e-Firoshahi, Sams-e Siraj Afif. He also has Tariq-e-Firoshahi. So you have two people with the same text name. So in the examination, the examiner would expect you to remember Barni, but may not be able to remember Afif. Same way you have Ibn Battuta, Kitab ul Rehala, talked about quite a lot in that sense. Then if we move to Mughal India, how to pronounce, because you don't have to pronounce in the examination, you have to identify. Does not really matter, Ashay. Stop asking irrelevant questions. Therefore, you have Babar. He wrote Tuzuke Babri. Very easy, don't have to remember. Then, Gulbadan Begum wrote the biography of Humayun. We know about Humayun because his sister wrote her biography. Same way, in Mughal India, we have two texts called Akbarnama. Akbarnama was written by Badauni and Abul Fazl both. But it is believed that Badauni is the critical edition. Critical of Akbar, and he is in praise of Akbar. And therefore, a lot of interesting data we get to know out of Badauni. And Aine Akbari is a part of Akbarnama, the most important text for the administrative history of Mughal India. Then we have another two people who wrote the same text name, Padshah Nama, Lahori and Muhammad Waris. These two have to remember because same text can be put in the examination to put you off. Same way, Inayat Khan and Shahil, Shahjahan Nama, Shahjahan Nama. This is the catch here. Wherever there's two texts with the same name, you have to remember both the authors so that the examiner cannot put you off in that sense. Then the last one I want you to remember is Ishwar Das, because he's a Hindu writing about Aurangzeb's period. I told you, and I'm already telling you, this is a heavy section. There is no running away from this in that regard. And you have to be very clear. No mains question will come with specific emphasis on any specific period. They can ask you the importance of literature, or they can ask you the importance of a certain text group, which is Persian literature, Buddhist literature. What is the importance of them? Not specific to any specific text. Write a short note on Kitabul Hind. That is not what is expected in the examination. Get my point? Yes? Okay. Now, if you're alive, again, I'm ready to give you a breather here. But now I want your attention after this. I tell me one thing. You've had your lunch. Most of you have had your lunch, because then I'll not give you a lunch break. You've not had your lunch. Yes, sir. No, sir. Okay. So we can do one thing. Simple, straightforward point. We take a breather here again, and we'll stop at 3 p.m. for lunch. Or after numismatics, we'll stop for lunch. Okay? And thereafter, 15 minutes I give you for lunch, 15-20 minutes, and we come back and finish the course. I'll do that. So you said no, sir, no, sir, no, sir. There's more no's. So we'll come back, numismatics, then take a lunch break. Done? Okay. Now, numismatics coins give you a lot of history, from political to economic, to art and culture, to religious, you get a lot of different indications out of coins. And in that sense, if we are mapping the coin history of India generally, you'll be able to understand how things are changing. Now, if you remember, this is the basic point that from the weight, design, the thing, everything which is what metal it is using, you get to know about the metallurgical history. But we already know that the Vedic period, there are terms which are there, but they don't refer to coinage but to gold. And the first coin which appeared in the Indian subcontinent is the punch-marked coins, mostly in silver and some in copper. Now, the Ashtadhyayi, Panini's Ashtadhyayi, actually refers to multiple terminologies, which you should remember. This has to be remembered. Has come twice or thrice in the examination. Very, very important that ways. And very simply, these terminologies have been used for coins thereafter. Now, we know about punch-marked coins, but here I want to show you punch-marked coins. Now, the reason why punch-marked coins are considered just crude coins is because, as you can see, they have very irregular shape, irregular design. The front has something, obverse has something, reverse is totally plain or has some form of basic two, three simple small types of what we call as indentures or carvings into it. And that is why punch-marked coins of the Mahajanpada period are not considered proper coins. They are not actually very good quality coins. And when we go to the Mauryan period punch-marked coins, the coinage is not that good. Though the number of symbols increase, which includes multiple Buddhist symbols, the fact is that the coin quality does not correspond with how Mauryas project themselves, and therefore the coinage was not made into proper coinage by the time we come to the Mauryas. Now, it was the Indo-Greeks who, and again this you already know, who developed first proper coinage in India with you have the description in the form of inscriptions. You have the photo or the portrait of the king here. Over and above that, you had Hercules, Athena, Greek gods on the background, and proper double die struck or die struck coins were now being produced. And therefore, Indo-Greeks broke that basic matter of having very crude coins in India. Now, in Nitin Singhania, when you read this chapter, there will be a mention wherein it will say that Kanishka is a Indo-Greek king. No, Kanishka is a Kushana king, and therefore Kushana coins which come through are much better and much more valuable than what the Indo-Greeks were. And when we get Kushana coins, the coin quality changes. We start to get gold. And over and above that, now we have Indian gods. This being Shiva. And when you look at the coins of Kanishka, Huvishka, his brother, you will get reference to Buddha. You will get reference to Shiva. You will get reference to the Lakshmi series coins. And therefore, their coins were very valuable. First proper gold coinage in India, and Indian gods along with Greek gods were being projected by the Kushanas. In a way, Kushanas are considered a high point when it comes to coin stories, coin political history, economic history, and the basic ideas itself. Now, the Satavahanas, in a way, show us that coinage can be indicative of the true reality of the ground reality of economy. Because when you look at Satavahana coins, you will realize, I told you, Satavahanas are known for what? They're known for what? What is the tradition which Satavahana started? What is that tradition which Satavahana started? Satavahanas are known for land grants. Land grants means they did not have a lot of money, and therefore you can see their coins are ugly, they have no quality, and they are very crude and looking like punch marked coins. This indicates that there's an urban contraction, there's an economic crisis, which may not have been there under the Kushanas initially. But there is a revival, and that revival is in the Gupta period. The Shakas will keep the coins in silver itself. This is the Chastana series coins, which tells us about the Saka era itself. But the revival will come in the form of the Gupta coins. The Gupta coins are considered aesthetically the best. You have Samudragupta represented, you have goddess Lakshmi, then you have proper Hinduistic gods represented. Over and above that, you have the king doing day-to-day activities. There are also queen and king coins. There are coins which talk about how he's playing the veena, how he's going to hunting, how he's sitting on a horse. And now the Guptas have made the coin a aesthetical piece, the highest point in. If the Taj Mahal is the highest point in architecture for Indo-Islamic architecture, this is the highest point in coinage. Never ever would coins in India become so beautiful or be so elaborate in their representation. Now, you can see that there's a gradation. There's a certain way in which there's a movement from very crude coins to becoming more and more elaborate, to becoming more and more elaborate, to then reaching a point where you get Gupta. But as soon as we talk about the Pandyas and Cholas, they keep the same type of tradition alive in South India. Unfortunately, we don't have images of these coins, but these coins have very big legends. They have specific animals associated with the dynasties itself. But as soon as we go to medieval India, the problem now becomes more acute. The problem is that you cannot represent what we call as human or animal figures on coins. So the coinage totally changes. And in that sense, the Delhi Sultanate, the last time goddess Lakshmi was represented, is called the Lakshmi series coins of Gori. Before Gori left, he issued a what we call as a coin series. In that, the last Lakshmi series is basically in medieval India with regards to Gori. Thereafter, we will start to get what is called as Tanka and Jittal. This is a Jittal of the Iltutmish period, and it shows that now the kalima is being used. The Quranic verses have been written with the place and the name of the king being mentioned on the coin itself. But coins are indicative of power also. If I look at Razia's coins, and if I look at Balban's coin, I can understand how Razia was not very, very powerful. She was only able to issue more jittals, while Balban had the power to even issue a limited series gold coin, and his silver coins were the most elaborate, most clean, and very well made in that regard, with details given about him and where it has been minted in that sense. However, the most interesting of all here is Muhammad bin Tughlaq. This is the token currency which I was talking about previously. Token currency in which bronze coins were issued in the form of silver coins. He was able to issue silver, gold, and token currency along with Jittal. But Alauddin Khilji was the one whose coins are the most ubiquitous. In the sense, you will find them from the north to even parts on South India, showing us his elaborate spread when he was expanding in India itself. Then, when we move to the Mughals, the terminologies change. We get what we call as the rupaya and the coin related to mohar. Mohar is basically gold coin. Thereafter, he had a specific coin for his own idea of Deen Ilahi, which is called the Ilahi series coins itself. But Rupaya is the most common, which we will find in Mughal India. Now, if you look at Akbar's coins, it will not instill too much confidence in you, which tells us that Akbar's basic political ideas were still spreading, were not that powerful. He was still trying to find his space. Why am I saying this to you? You look at this vis-a-vis Jahangir and you will realize it. Jahangir did something which was not allowed within Islam, which is to represent himself on coins itself. And he was even using sun, which is a Rajput symbol on the coins. He even went on to produce what are called the sun sign base. This is the sun sign coins, in which the Cancer coin is called because the Cancer sun sign has been used. This was also issued by Jahangir. But the most beautiful coins will come by Shah Jahan. not as a joke. He knows how to waste money. His coins were very, very heavy, very beautifully made. You can see how the symbolism has been integrated. There are the lotus symbol being integrated into the coin itself. Again, something not allowed, but who will say that to Jahangir and Shah Jahan? And the coinage will reach the highest point under Mughal India, under Shah Jahan. Aurangzeb more or less withdrew more or less all of these coins in that sense. So we have discussed coinage history previously. The purpose here was to show you those coins. So I hope you understand what I'm trying to show you here, which is a representation of that period. Everything which is written in the PPT is also written in the Nitin Singhania. Nitin Singhania, only one difference is there. Nitin Singhania says Kanishka, Indo-Greek coin. He's not an Indo-Greek ruler. When you get this PPT, you can analyze these coins much closer if you want to. Are we clear? Are we clear? Okay. Now, two simple topics and then we'll end the class today. I'll give you a proper lunch break in the sense you can go and have lunch. We'll finish the class itself. It makes no sense. For 15 minutes we can take. One is the concept of schools of art first, and which is basically the other schools of art, the miscellaneous, and then is science and technology. So the first discussion is certain periods which I did not cover during the main architectural history because it broke the series. Rather, we will do it here. So the first is something which was contemporary. If you have if your doubt session is this only. If you have a doubt, type it and keep it. Once I end this class, I will ask you. 2023 paper is there in this paper. Don't worry about that. Now, Nayaka school is the one which was contemporary to Vijayanagara school, and it is known for the Meenakshi temple in Madurai, and the distinction which has been given to the Meenakshi temple based on Nayaka architecture. It has the tallest gopuram, and there's a very specific thing which is used in Nayak schools, which is very, very big hallways. Very, very big hallways. So the Meenakshi temple, you can see the hallways, the Parakarams as they're called, and the tallest gopuram in the world when we talk about ancient temples itself. And therefore, the basic Dravida style remains. Two elements are added. So the Nayaka school in that sense is just nothing but Dravida, but with two very interesting features. They make very tall gopurams and they're very big hallways in that regard. Thereafter, we move to other provincial architecture in that sense. And the first one will be the Bengal school during the medieval period, in which we have two basic examples: the Kadam Rasul Mosque and the Adina Mosque. The Kadam Rasul Mosque shows a lot of elements which we can see are there in Mughal architecture. These are caves which you can see. That are further, you can see that they are taking arches and caves very seriously. This is the iconic Bengal roof. But it is the Adina Mosque which gives us the best example of how Mughal architecture was influencing Bengal architecture. We can see the inverted lotus, we can see the foliated arch, and we can see even Vesara type influence by using basaltic rocks itself for the black color in that sense. But if I go a little bit more backwards, you will get the balcony, which is the Rajasthani balcony, along with again the inverted lotus being shown in different contexts. And the color of the brick is very Buddhist. This is called Buddhist burnt rocks, burnt bricks. And in that sense, we can see that the Bengal architecture is exhibiting a lot of different influences which were already there in Bengal plus Mughal. Then we move to Malwa, and in Malwa we get to know about two very important things. Malwa buildings are known for two very interesting things, which is they being very, very sustainably built, and more than that, they have a way of making the building in such a way that the circulation of air is such that they are very well ventilated, and the buildings have very large windows, and they make very big buildings with good ventilation, good light source. So they are basically green buildings in that sense. You have the Rani Roopmati Pavilion and the Jahaz Mahal in that regard. This is Rani Roopmati Pavilion. We can see the Chhatri here. We can see Batar here, which is the sloping walls. We can see arches. We can see the lotus. But they've been made in such a way that it is so airy. It is very, very open in that sense, and allows for good movement of what we call as light and wind. Comes more out in the Jahaz Mahal. Looks like a big ship, that's called Jahaz Mahal. Same way, the way it is circulating air is such that you never need any form of artificial light or any form of artificial cooling when it comes to these buildings. Malwa is known to be the first green buildings in India itself. Thereafter, we go to Jaunpur, and Jaunpur is known for two things. They will make minars, but they will make it connected to the arch. So you have this very interesting concept wherein minars and arches are integrated with each other. And in that regard, the Sarki rulers have this iconic interpretation in which archways and minars come together, and so as to create a very interesting type of design. This is the Atala Mosque, which shows us this interpretation in that sense. Further, the highest point of regional architecture is under Bijapur's, and this is called the Gol Gumbaj. This is called the Gol Gumbaj. Gol Gumbaj is very, very important because it is known for its bulbous dome, three arcaded facet, which is three arcaded facets means that you have 1, 2, 3. But what it is actually known for is this. Again, making minars and pushing it into the building itself. Pushing it into the building itself. Wherein we will have a iconic bulbous dome plus minars being pushed inside with a very high ceiling, but the sound is such that there is no echo also. It's a very interesting building in that regard. So Bijapur, the Jaunpur, Malwa, Bengal, and Nayak are the 5 small regional areas which you need to know. Questions are not coming from this area, but we have to do it generally. Now, the last discussion we have is basically science and technology, wherein we have to understand what we call as the concept of ancient science and tech. Was there the science and technology in ancient India or not? And the answer to that question is yes. How? The point is, when you look at the Vedas, in Vedic literature itself, we have Ganit, which is maths, and Rekha Ganit, which is geometry, inbuilt into it. In the sense that they talk about how to make fire altars, which is basically Havan Kunds. And in the process of telling how to make fire altars, they're basically defining us or telling us the concept of different forms of what we call as the concept of different forms of geometrical patterns. So from star to how to make a square to make these different shapes are coming out in the form of Rekha Ganit and Ganit in Vedic literature. But the real father of mathematics in that sense would be Aryabhatta, who will become the proper first mathematician by the Gupta period, who will talk about trigonometry, even the concept of Pythagoras theorem and the different ideas related to that. However, we are known as the originators of zero and the alphabet, the numerics 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are called Indian numerals. Indian numerals are actually were developed in India first, then went to the Arab world, and then to the Westerners, who gave us this back from this which we had, and therefore we are the originators of zero and the Indian numerals. Decimal was developed by the Chinese, but was used properly in India for the first time by Aryabhatta, by Brahmagupta and Baramir. And in that sense, We were doing complex mathematical problems even before the Westerners were doing it properly. So a lot of theories which they did very late, we were doing it previously. And for that, India is the birthplace of astronomy and astrology in that sense, along with the Greeks, because we already had the names of most of the planets from Jupiter to Venus to Moon. We were using them in that sense. We were using their movement also. So astronomy and astrology are different in the sense that astronomy is the study of celestial bodies. Astrology is the study of movement of celestial bodies on you, which is what the Babas and Nakshatras are. Now, the first such astrologer or astronomer, rather not astrologer, astronomer was Aryabhatta through his Aryabhatiam. In this, he talked about the knowledge of maths and astronomy. He gave the circumference of the earth. He talked about earth's rotation and the fact that earth is also revolving around the sun. At the same point of time, these dumb Westerners are talking about flat earth. He's talking about the earth being a geoid and moving around the sun itself and spinning on its axis. Thereafter, we have second Varamir. Varamir is the one who's considered the father of astrology, which is how this impacts us through his Pancha Siddhanta, which is how the movement of planets affects you and me. He talked about the revolution of the moon around the earth and nakshatras. Then you have the third, which is Brahmagupta and Brahma Siddhanta or Brahmaputra Siddhanta, which basically talked about even gravitational force. And last but not the least is Bhaskar. These are given in standard chronological pattern. Questions have not come from this area. It's just that you should know it. These names you should know. And chronological pattern would be Aryabhatta, Varamir, Brahmagupta, and Bhaskar. You need to know basic chronological question can come. Thereafter, if astronomy we were so good, we were also very good in medical sciences. In the sense, we are the birthplace of Ayurveda. We have Charak Samhita, which talks about Ayurveda. And we also have the Sushruta Samhita, which is the first text on surgical techniques and even rhinoplasty, removing ulcers, cataracts, all have been talked about into it. And Takshila was the place for medicine. Banaras was the place for surgery. And in that sense, you just need to remember Charak Samhita, Sushruta Samhita. Sushruta wrote it, Charak wrote it. And thereafter, the names which I've given you. Again, a section which you don't have to delve into too much. But as I told you, Nitin Singh Hani has a good section on it. You can read it once. With this, we finish everything we had to do with regards to the topics which were left. Some of you asked me that, what about the 2023 paper? See, I'll have a discussion with regards to 2023. I've already done these questions with you, but I'll have a discussion. For example, the first question which had come was related to Dhanyakantaka. Now, if you remember, when I was talking about Satavahanas, I told you that Dhanyakantaka was one of the capitals of the Satavahanas. It is asking, what does Dhanyakantaka correspond to in modern day? And the answer here was Andhra, because that was the whole sector in which the Satavahanas were. That is what you had to remember. Simple, straightforward point. Then we have done this question also, which is the concept of stupa. And here the concept of stupa is Buddhist in origin. This is a question mark question because this is true also, this is not true also, because the implementation is Buddhist, but the concept is not. So this can be correct, it can be correct, but the basic point is stupa has relics. Yes, is generally, it's written generally. So yes. Thereafter, votive and commemorative. Votive means to propagate and commemorate to basically celebrate Buddhism. So 2 and 3 are correct. Either it is all 3 or only 2. We will only get to know once the key is going to come out. Have they taken the first concept as like that with regards to, most probably it should be C. It should be B, which is only 2, not all 3. With the concept of Buddhism, the concept of stupa is not specific to Buddhism in that regard. So you can see the questions are applied concept. Thereafter, a very simple question came out of a discussion which we had on Tuesday, I guess, which is with reference to South India, Korkai, Pompuhar, Muzirish are ports. Very easy question. All have been shown to you, have been discussed with you. I've shown you them on the map itself, which I gave in Vijayanagara. So you can see maps matter. Sometimes these things really do matter. Thereafter, we have this question, which was a trick question. Now, this type of question you do not attempt if you don't know it. You do not attempt if you don't know it. It was related. This is basically the one question which was difficult out of ancient India, which is talking about Sangam poems and the practice of Kiruktal. Basically, nobody knows this. If you are even optional, you will not know it. The answer here is that basically the kings never used to show their back to the battlefield. So it is a way of committing suicide, ritualistic suicide after battlefield. But here the problem is all seem to be relevant. All seem to be relevant. This is called a trick question. If you take a negative here, then you are mostly being overconfident. Don't try to do these type of questions. It will generally put you off. It will generally put you off. Don't do it. Because if you know it, don't know it. And I can't tell you that go and learn every Sangam poem. Because the list of terminologies will be very, very big. This is a question which you leave. This is a more than academic level question in that regard. Then, this I also showed to you. Which of the following were established in early 8th century AD? And as it turned out, none of them were there. This was based on the timeline of medieval India. And basically the discussion I had with early medieval. Then here we again have very simply two texts which are very common. Milindapana is Nagarjuna is Nagasena, and Devi Chandraguptam is Vishaka Datta. Again discussed in class. Vishaka Datta is Mudrakshara and Devi Chandraguptam. So this is again a very easy question if you know these two, which are very standard texts. Other two were totally correctly matched. So only two were correctly matched. But again, becomes problematic because of this new concept which has come through. Could have been easier if there was 1, 2, 1, 2, and 3, 3, and 4. That is would be making it easier. Then, this question again I showed you previously. The easiest possible, which is Jainism. Soul. Jainism. It's the easiest possible in that regard. Jainism. Wherever you see soul, it is Jainism. Then I showed you this question also, which was Vijayanagara ruler who made an aqueduct from the Tungabhadra, and it was Devraya I. The ironical part is that out of these whole four, only two are Vijayanagara rulers, others aren't. So the simple point is it's Devraya I who made it. Devraya II, if they gave it, it would have become difficult because then both have constructed a lot of things, but it's simple, straightforward. Then this is modern India. This is again done. Now, before we stop for today, does remembering years matter? No. If you can remember the basic period. Now, mains questions which are coming nowadays have become a little bit interesting. This year, 3 questions came out of ancient India. None of them were from art and culture, but were application of ancient and medieval India, which I've already discussed when we were discussing in ancient and medieval. But I want to show you what type of questions are coming. Discuss the main contributions of, this is 2022, discuss the main contributions of the contributions of Gupta period and Chola period to Indian heritage and culture. Now, this basically is a question which does not need an understanding of art and culture, but of ancient India plus art and culture. You just have to talk about the Guptas wherever we've talked about it, and Cholas wherever we've talked about it. So and keep it in chronology. This is Gupta, this is Imperial Chola. So Gupta we've talked about in the context of architecture. We discussed in the context of sculpture. We discussed in the concept of how they were the temple builders. We have also talked about in the context of literature. Same ways, Chola, sculpture, architecture, every module which you've done, you have to go into it and take out the relevant portion and put it down. It's a lot to write. Everybody is going to write in a different sense. Nobody is going to write the same answer. Same way, discuss the significance of lion and bull figures in Indian mythology, art and architecture. This is a question, basically a current affairs question which came through. Lion because of the whole emblem on the parliament building itself. But lion, bull, mythology, architecture. Lion is known in what we call as mythologically in Shakti. Then we have lion reference in a lot of different texts and in Hinduism, in Buddhism and in Jainism. Thereafter, when we talk about architecture, we have the concept of Mauryan pillars, royalty, then we have reference to in temple building, and we have reference to in sculpture also. Same way bull, Shiva, Nandi. Thereafter we have reference to bull also in Buddhism, also in Jainism, because it is a reference to one of the Tirthankars. And bull again represented in temples, in sculpture, multiple references. Again, nobody writes this answer in the right way. Everybody is going to give a different answer. It is basically checking the application of art and culture and not your basic ratification. Can you go down your memory and take out the references of lions and bulls wherever we've discussed them to write an answer like this? It's a very interesting question that way. Then, evaluate the nature of Bhakti literature and its contribution to Indian culture. Very easy. Bhakti challenged the concept of what Allavarnayanas, and then later ones challenged caste. They challenged gender. They gave us devotional personalization. That whole Venn diagram which I made for you, if you just summarize that Venn diagram, you will get a 150-word answer automatically. That would be the Bhakti literature contribution. Contribution nature. Nature is personalization of devotion. The concept of contribution is how it changed India itself. And today what Hinduism is a mixture of Bhakti literature. Then, this is again an interesting question, 2021. The rock cut architecture represents one of the most important sources of our knowledge. It's not talking about a specific thing. It's talking about a technique. Where do we see rock cut? We see rock cut in caves. We see rock cut in what we call as pillars. We see rock cut in temples. We see rock cut in buildings made in the medieval period. Therefore, if we do not have rock cut architecture, we would not have any understanding of Mauryan pillars, we would not have any understanding of Ajanta, Ellora, or any form of caves, we would not have any understanding of temples, we do not have any understanding of Mahabalipuram. Therefore, wherever you have seen the word rock cut throughout this syllabus, you have to write that. This is where students are not understanding one thing. Art and culture is not all about ratification. It is also about understanding the processes. What I've tried to do throughout this course is I've tried to give you an understanding. Rock cut sculpture, rock cut monuments, rock cut this, that. Basically, they are not asking factual questions. They're conceptual questions in that sense. And that is where you have to have conceptual clarity. That is why I'm doing 5 classes only architecture, because the questions are basically conceptual application of architecture. And that is a very important point you need to understand. Then, Pala period is the most significant phase, the same as question as Gupta and Chola. Palas we know Buddhism, Palas we know Pala Pothis, we know Palas for the Bengal architecture, we know Palas for Vajrayanic Buddhism, we know Palas for the most important, the Vikramshila University, Nalanda University, Udantapuri. All these universities were there because of the Palas. Again, asking, this is where students also don't understand the importance of ancient, medieval, and art and culture. If you understand ancient, you will understand art and culture better, because these questions are intersecting both these points together. And that is what you have to understand properly. Now, this question, I think everybody can write right now itself. Highlight these Central Asian and Greco-Bactrian elements in Gandhara art. Easiest possible. Basically, they're asking you half-closed eyes, elongated, forehead lines, curly hair, the concept of draping. That's it. Easiest possible question, straightforward, nothing big, nothing small. I gave you a table for this, and I gave you a slide for this to write it down. Further, this is called an open-ended question. Safeguarding Indian art heritage is the need of the moment. This is basically you understanding the importance of culture and how to protect it. That is basically this question. Most of the students don't talk about it. This is the basic point. That is why from time to time I've been telling you, please make sure that you understand the importance of your own culture and how you can protect it. Schemes, the concept of incentivization, audience, digitization, new technology, standard things which you would write for anything. Standard concept. And last but not the least, out of literature, as you pointed out, the question with regards to Chinese and Arab travelers be very important. Chinese travelers, very, very important. For example, would be the Hunsang, Fahya, and Itzing. Arab traveler would be the story of either Al-Masudi or Al-Baruni, whatever you want to write it. This again is a 10-mark question, very easy to write generally. And with this, your adhyay is over. Your journey with me is over with regards to ancient medieval art and culture. Our story is complete now. Done? Perfect. So, thank you. I'll see you soon. And just straightforward art and culture, two aspects: understand something and learn something. For learning, 15 minutes rule, 2 to 3 points every day. For understanding, try to understand everything, try to do answer writing. Strategy for revision is going to be learn the theater and all, one or two each day till the examination. Other than that, mains level preparation, understand architecture, go through the PPTs, they're more than enough. Yes? Okay, perfect. Then Raj, I should. Okay. Thank you. Take care. It was a pleasure. I will see you in the next month with another set of issues, maybe modern day. Thank you. Take care.